Well, I'll start off with AFVN since we're there. I heard a message. I had a radio just like this, and I heard a message, and it said that they were going to turn the radio station off if they didn't have someone to run the station. Um, I was kind of crazy. I grew up in Philly. I lived in the West Oak Lane area, and near me, within commuting area, was there were two radio stations that were not WIBG, but they were WNAR in Norristown, and there was another one which foolishly gave away their call letters, WIFI, Wi-Fi 92. Wi-Fi was also in the Norristown area. It was at a man's house. Um, his name was Mel Gallup. Mel always talked about if it was only an AM station, I would be making money. He worked at WIP, if you're familiar with that station. Anyway, get to Vietnam. I hear this message if they're going to turn off our radio station. Now, you got to remember, I don't know about, I was not a combat guy, but that was the only thing that kept us alive at night. I mean, we'd probably fall asleep during guard duty if it wasn't for the music from AFVN. So I went down, talked to the people at AFVN in Quin Yon. I was stationed at Duc Pho at the time, and went down, and I already knew how to run the board and everything. So they said, yes, we can really use you till we find somebody else. I knew it was only going to be temporary. So I went back to my first sergeant, and my first sergeant said, I don't care if you do this on your own time. You better be here in the morning to do your regular job, which was running. I ran a maintenance shop to fix radios. And that's, speaking of those radios, I was also, I guess, Company C, 4th of the 21st Infantry, was Lieutenant Calley's unit. So I had to go through all of the investigations of the CIA coming out to see what, they actually came in my shop with serial numbers for the different radios and said, let's see what happened with this radio. And they wanted to make sure there was no miscommunication during that whole My Lai incident. Anyway, so I used to get in a deuce and half and just take myself down there after it got quiet at night, or before it got dark, of course. Made it to the radio station. I was there till about, just about daylight when they started the morning show. And then I came back and made formation in my company area at the normal time. And so I did that for 3 months. Now, somehow I got a copy of Fire and Rain by James Taylor, and I wasn't aware that that was a band song. And I mean, they took me, after I played it, they said, don't you know you're not allowed to play that? I said, what's wrong with that song? It's about a guy in a mental institution who meets a girl, Suzanne, the plans they made, put an end to you, and so forth. He said, listen to the words again. I've seen fire, enemy fire, rain, monsoon rains, sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground. No, you can't play that song. And I got them upset because I played it again. and I just left. That was it. After 3 months of that, I couldn't stand it anymore. So I went back to my company, and I really should go back to when I lived in Philly. When I lived in Philly, the big radio stations were WIBG and later on WFIL. And I used to listen. Everywhere I went, I had my little radio. And I would tell people, I want to be the guy on the radio someday. So I did get to do that for 3 months in Vietnam. Then I got stationed at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and I got to listen to all the New York stations. So I got to hear Cousin Brucey, Dan Ingram, all the famous WABC disc jockeys. And I really wanted to be the guy on the radio, but it never happened, just for that brief period of time. Now, when I was in Vietnam, of course, everywhere, like I said, we listened to AFVN, especially at night when we were on guard duty. And all of those songs over there are probably the most popular songs. They were, I guess, allowed to play those those songs. One of the songs that was banned, Ray Stevens' "Everything Is Beautiful." Go figure that one. Go figure that one out. But I had to tell you, when I got to Vietnam, we flew Braniff Airlines. Plane landed, and two guys, infantry guys in all combat uniform, jump on the plane, and they yell out, in the event of an enemy attack, they were pointing out where the bunkers were. And I remember walking up this long trail, and off to the right was a tent, very well lit up, and I could hear AFVN on the radio, and everybody was playing their little transistor radios at the time. And let me see if I can get this. And this was the song that was playing, and I can't even get it to play. Oh well. Anyway, if anybody knows the song Steam, na na hey hey, kiss 'em goodbye, na 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 na. Well, they all had their little transistor radios like this. They're listening to AFVN. It came on right after the newscast. Now, when I was at Fort Monmouth, I worked with a guy named Mike Sullivan. It, again, was a voluntary thing. He did our news on the closed circuit TV at Fort Monmouth. And then he disappeared. I didn't know what he was doing. And when I was coming down on that trail and they were playing Na Na Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye, if you could imagine, all the guys are singing in unison, saying goodbye to us because they were going to go on the plane that we just came out of. You know, that was their freedom bird to home. And what do I hear? AFVN News compiled from commercial and military news agencies with Army Specialist Mike Sullivan. So I thought to myself, you son of a gun, you're down in Saigon doing the news, and that's, you know, your whole thing in Vietnam. I think part of my problem was after I left Vietnam, you got to remember, I was only 20 years old when I came home, or 21 maybe. But I went from being a E2 at Fort Monmouth in, I got there November of '68. By October '69, I was an E5. The only reason why I was an E5 is we had a group. We had to go through escape and evasion. I went through non-commissioned officers candidate school. And escape and evasion, there were 24 of us in the class. And 21 the next day were in the hospital. Now, I had my own car up there since I lived so close. And I got to the objective using my car and a stolen Navy Jeep. That's another story. I got there. They still roughed me around. They had Vietnam veterans, and I remember there were a lot of German Shepherds. And one of the guys in my class, his father was a colonel. So his father visited him in the hospital, did an investigation on what happened. All I know is they told us to go out in a formation. They told each and every one of us, this is after the guys were out of the hospital, that we would be awarded E5 because that training was never meant to be that rough. In fact, they relieved our commander of duty and everything like that. So here I am, don't really, not even a year in the Army. I'm a non-commissioned officer. I show up in Vietnam, and one of the guys that quit our class, His name was Bruce Lundeen. Bruce and I were really good buddies, and we would listen to music together and so forth. He left. He didn't make the class. He just dropped out. And when I arrived at my company, I hear the first sergeant said, "Will you please tell Bruce or Specialist Lundeen to come down and pick up his new non-commissioned officer in charge, NCOIC," which was me. The man came up in the deuce and half, opened the door, and literally got down on his knees and pounded on the ground. When he saw who it was, said, "Oh my God, not again, not again. I can't stand being, with this guy another year. We're going to work together." And it worked out very well. Unfortunately, Bruce passed away only when he was 58 because of Agent Orange. And one of the things I did last night is I used to send tapes home, and when I got home, I used to send tapes back with the latest music for the guys to hear. And two guys, Mike Thompson and Carson Sapp, sent me this wonderful tape back where they were just clowning around and even squeezing one of the dogs to get it to bark. And my wife and I heard it in the car. It's been years since I heard it. A friend of mine put it on a jump drive so I could listen to it. And last night I decided, let me see what happened to Carson Sapp. I knew he was from Georgia, and Mike Thompson, I knew he was from Tennessee. So I did an internet search, and I found both of them on the obituary pages. So, and they were my age. I mean, they were Vietnam. There was no doubt. Although one didn't look like his picture, what I pictured of him. The other one, Carson Sapp, it was definitely him. So I thought I would try to tell a little bit of my story. I actually came back from Vietnam, and most people are happy to be home. They sent me right over to Germany in the middle of the winter, and that was the worst thing that the government could have done with me, because I first of all, it was so cold going from a hot climate. And then when I did get to Germany, the first thing I did was put in to go back to my unit in Vietnam, because those guys wanted me back there. And of course, that was during the time that Nixon was cutting back on troops in Vietnam, so I was not able to go there. But I did get my time on the radio. It was short. And I don't think it will ever happen again. But that's my story. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm looking in the back there. Any questions about my service? I actually, I hate to say it, sort of enjoyed being in Vietnam. But I would take chances that I shouldn't take. I'd be out on guard duty or something and jump off of the bunker and do some crazy things. One of the things that really bugged me was the putting out the claymore mines. They would say, I don't know if anybody had used them, right in the front of the claymore mines. It said, "This side faces enemy." And I would be out there putting the fuse in, and I always had images of the claymore mines blowing up in my face. And years later, when I was out of the service, my first job as a civilian, as a technician, I worked on the production line of the claymore mines. So that and the firing device, I worked on those. Now, I did leave the service in 1971. I worked for the Defense Department. I started that around 1982. When I worked for the Defense Department, it was for electronics. I was the only electronic guy left in Montgomery County. So I was buying transmitters that flew on F-18s to jam all of the frequencies that the improvised explosive devices were on. And it was a lot of pressure to get those things out and get them on the aircraft. They used them in A6s and they used them in F-18s on both wings. So
I got a question.
yeah.
So I'm just trying to, because I'm learning as I've been going, doing all this. So when all the guys are out there in the field, what radio are they listening to at the station? Is it this radio?
No, they're just listening to their own personal, yeah, they're listening to their own personal radios. The government didn't give us anything to listen to it on.
Okay.
You don't play the radio.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. But I heard from people all the time.
So everybody, they had like little tiny transmitters.
Right.
Tiny little,
We were on frequencies like 560, which is the same as WFIL here. Let's see yeah, 56 and some of the upper, I think 77. Now all the FM stations, and we did experiment with FM. Back in 1970, what you played on FM was beautiful music. They didn't have the music that most of the guys would listen to. They were all at 100.1 FM. And so it didn't matter whether you were on AFVN Chulai or you were all the way up in Da Nang. Everybody was on the same frequency.
Now, I may have missed this, but did you tell them about the songs that you were told not to play?
Yeah, I did tell them. Two of them really. Everything is Beautiful by Ray Stevens. And it's funny, I was listening to a soundbite from AFVN about a year after I was told I couldn't play that song, and they were playing the song. So things change. Uh-oh.
Where did you get all the material from? You said you sent tapes back and forth sometimes, but the radio station had their own catalog of music?
We actually played 45s, the old 45 RPMs on turntables. But we had capabilities on reel-to-reel. Now, how I got banned songs, I don't know if anybody remembers. There used to be a Columbia.
The records?
Yeah, you could get the records, and everybody at that time had the 8-tracks. You'd see all these little 8-tracks, and we would get those 8-track recordings, and everybody would put them on reel-to-reel because we had access to the reel-to-reel recorders. Sometimes it was difficult getting tape for them, so we actually put them on cassette tape. I even had a big unit that had both cassette and reel-to-reel, so I could, and I used to use that to send letters home, sort of, play music for home.
It sounds pretty primitive.
Yeah.
You kind of had to make do with what you had.
Oh yeah, it was primitive. I mean, the only thing we had was tape. It wasn't feasible to really edit that tape. So I would bring the reel-to-reel tape from, I have some pictures, I think, in one of the books I brought here of me on that reel-to-reel tape editing something. And then we got that tape itself and just brought it along. You got to kind of sneak it in, hide it wherever you could, because you weren't allowed to play some of the music. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Fire and Rain song was also banned after 9/11 on our radio stations here.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean by your radio station?
Like planes and pieces burning on.
Wibbage 94.3 maybe down here?
Oh, no, whatever stations are over here, I don't know. I'm more north of here. So,
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that.
yeah.
My wife has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I could talk to him anytime. What did the guys think of these war songs that were on the radio? Did they have any kind of opinion or?
Not really. I didn't really hear anything other than they would sing it. That's about all, I think the most popular when I was there was Creedence Clearwater Revival, Led Zeppelin, the Moody Blues, and we just lost John Lodge last night, yesterday, from the Moody Blues, by the way. I found out he was 81, and I went online to his website. they were still selling tickets to his concert. So, no, he won't be there.
And we used to listen to that radio during the day, and after 8 o'clock, you listen to Hanoi Hannah.
Oh yeah.
And she can tell you where you're going, where your unit's going, and we don't even know. Yeah?
Yeah, that was, and almost all of it was on AM radio. The FM was still in its infancy then. Like I said, I worked at an FM station, and the guy came downstairs and said, if only this was AM, I would be making some money. And so, any other questions?
I'm sorry.
Were the stations linked together somehow, or are they all operated?
We did have a network, but it was over phone lines. And it wasn't uncommon. The reason why I was playing music there, I would have to sit and listen to the newscast, which doesn't sound much different, especially news about the Mideast that we're hearing right now. But we would listen to the newscast, come over the phone, and then we would play the records live. And there was a distinctive difference in sound quality. You know, you're listening to a concentrate, what's the word, a very poor signal coming over the phone, and then all of a sudden you're going into actual records live. So there was a distinctive difference. So yeah, I would drive my deuce and half to the station. At the station is about, it was all prefab from RCA, and off to the side they had this like crank that you could bring the antenna up and raise it. Now, we used to have additional antennas there because we didn't want the enemy to hear a lot of the stuff we were doing. So I don't know if you're familiar with AM radio. You can control the pattern that you wanted to control. I know a lot of AM stations are being closed right now because, you know, it's ideal land for housing development, and you can't, it's expensive. You can't really maintain an AM radio station anymore.
The news coming from the United States, how do I question this? Did the troops know what was happening? Did you say things like, oh, they're rioting here or there? Because from my understanding, a lot of guys didn't know really what the American public were doing.
They would pick and choose. I think the Associated Press provided at the time, I don't even know if they still in business, but they would provide most of the stories. I thought what was kind of interesting, I don't know when they opened Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, 1970. They were actually able to show part of the broadcast from Philly, and they're talking about this big, beautiful new stadium we had, Veterans Stadium, but that's and they actually broadcast, I think, the audio of the game, but.
So selected information.
It was yeah, just like the music that we played, and there's a reason for it. You know, you don't want to get guys upset about what's going on home. But I found out mostly from letters and family members. And when I did get home, I was still in uniform, and I got attacked under a railroad bridge just because I had the uniform on. And I actually got all of my clothing, put it in a dumpster or something. I got rid of my clothing, and whoa.
Come on, John.
One of the other things I wanted to point out was a lot of my memories from Vietnam, and a lot of them were good memories. You tend to not remember the bad memories, like getting attacked and a bunch of guys getting killed and that kind of thing. But when I came home, I had to deal with this. And the way I dealt with, I said, I'm just going to pack everything in a box and put it on the top shelf, living room, closet, and it's going to just stay there. And unfortunately, that box gets open all the time because of music that's on the radio. So a lot of those songs will bring back certain memories, and so I still have to deal with that. But a lot of the memories are still in there, and I haven't opened the box yet fully. But there's a lot of cracks in that box. I mentioned going from Vietnam to Germany, and when I got to Germany, I went through a couple of weeks of just being very depressed, and I just didn't know what it was. And I realized, wait a minute, I'm over here playing games again, army games, where before, when I was in Vietnam at 19 years old, taking over the operation of a repair shop, and I thought I did a good job over there, and it just went from all that stress of trying to fix, repair, get radios out to the troops, to we're playing games again. I used to need a part, and I'd order a part, and the very next day I would get a part for that radio to get it back in the field. So one time I put a wrong number, and a klystron for a huge radar set came in on the back of I mean, this thing was huge. It stayed there for months, and no matter how much I tried to get rid of it or send it back, my first sergeant made them dig a great big hole and bury it because they couldn't get rid of it. It was huge. I mean, it was like the size of 3 of those cases over there. And, you know, they had to use a crane to put it down next to the shop. And I said, what am I supposed to do with that? You're supposed to fix a radar set with that.
You ordered it.
I did, and I was only off by 1 part number.
That's all it takes.
Sometimes they send you 3.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you weren't careful. But I was lucky, I got the parts right away. But when I went to Germany, I actually went there, I was a radar repairman. I actually was a radar repairman in Germany. And so I was working in a shop, and I would need a part, and it was, well, you might get it in 6 months. So I don't know if you know about working on electronics. You want to fix something right away because you forget how you got to the point where I need that part. The other crazy thing when I got to Germany was they made me a bunker commander or a tracked vehicle commander, and I didn't know anything about a tracked vehicle. I never was in one, never drove one. So I would be in this, like, we would get called for alert in the middle of the night. And I didn't know that we weren't supposed to travel because we didn't have enough gasoline allocated. So we got in this one tracked vehicle with my platoon, and, you know, hang a right, you know. We were out in the field somewhere, and I get this call from the first sergeant. I got to talk to you tomorrow morning. So I never went out with a tracked vehicle again. So, are there any other questions? That's good. So I'm going to turn this back to Peggy.
Absolutely. Well, Carmen,
Good job.
Thank you, man.
Okay.
Thanks for that, brother.